Hello everyone, it's Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist, back today with day 53 of 100 days of Ayurveda. Today we're going to discuss everything about female hormones. So it's a really interesting topic. It's a topic that's super relevant for each and every one of us, especially in the day and age. Hello Tamji, nice to see you. Hi Wendy, I hope you're still here. And I was talking about female hormones, and it's something that's relevant in today's day and age because of the stressful lives we all live. And stress is something that can alter your hormones as well, right? And there are a couple of other factors as well, which can definitely, change your hormones. And what I say is if your hormones are functioning really well, if everything is in balance, you will find yourself to be in a blissful mode, right? So you will find the joy, you'll find the happiness, you'll find that bliss in your life. But if your hormones are out of balance, you end up feeling miserable, right? And that's what I see a lot in my practice. So sometimes a woman comes to me with digestive issues and we try fixing the digestion, but the primary cause could be because of birth control pills that she has been on for a long time, which creates a lot of dysbiosis. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So without jumping into the topic, like I'll say a few quick highs. Hi, Ushaji, nice to see you. So, if you are watching this live, please say a quick hi or post it in the comments so I know you're watching me live. If you're watching this as a replay, please put a hashtag as replay so that I know you're catching up this replay. And if you have any questions at any point of time during this session or even afterwards, you can always post your questions in the comment section, and I will be more than happy to provide you with the answers to your questions to the best of my ability. Right? So, today we're going to discuss hormones. And the main ones that I'm going to discuss today when it comes to women are progesterone and estrogen. And I'll also talk a little bit about testosterone. The one thing to remember is that your hormones are always linked together. So, you're not going to find they working like your hormones working solitarily, right? So an imbalance in one can often throw everything out of balance, and that's also what we're going to discuss today, how they work together, right? So usually the main hormones that work, we're going to discuss again estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So the first one is progesterone, which we talk about as the Zen hormone, right? So it helps you feel really calm. It helps you feel a lot more grounded. It helps you feel Zen. And what it typically does is that it's going to help the body prepare for conception as well as pregnancy, and it helps to regulate the menstrual cycle. It is mainly produced in your ovaries, in the placenta, and also your adrenal glands, right, which are situated on top of your kidneys. So, and that's how it's important. And sometimes, as I mentioned yesterday, if you are going through a lot of stress in your life, your body ends up making a lot more cortisol, which is your long term stress hormone, rather than making progesterone. And that itself could create a condition where you're not having, or you feel the lack of your hormones, right? So your progesterone again is extremely important in body's function. It's going to help build bones. It's going to balance estrogen out. The estrogen progesterone ratio is extremely important, and the ratio can be skewed if your progesterone is too low or too high, right? Or if the estrogen is too low or too high as well. It's also important in breast health. It's also important for your nervous system. It prevents irritability and anxiety, right? It's going to prevent PMS. It's going to prevent mood swings. It's going to help with sleep too. And it also helps with the GABA receptors in the brain, right? So it actually, progesterone can actually also make testosterone, estrogen, and cortisol, right? So when your body decides, like your body needs to decide whether it wants to make sex hormones or it wants to make cortisol, right? And if your body is under chronic stress, then it ends up being or making more cortisol or stress hormones. So this is the kind of link that I always talk about. When you have stress, your body function is automatically going to switch because your body is trying to survive, right? So at the time of the stress, at the time of survival, your body is not going to focus on reproduction or making sex hormones, which is the duty for your reproductive cycle, right? It is going to focus just on survival and make more cortisol. And that is how long term stress can actually put your stress glands out of whack and your hormones out of whack too. I'm going to quickly look at the question. So, Beth, hi, Beth. Thanks for watching live. She says she's menopausal and she has just gotten bioidentical hormones. Okay, we're going to talk about those as well if I have some time today. But I'll be talking mainly about hormones, what they do to you, and what are the some signs and symptoms, that your hormones could be out of balance. So, if you have a low progesterone, right? So, progesterone, if you have low, um, it could be caused, or what are some causes that can lower your progesterone, right? So we talked about stress, that if you have too much stress, if you have too much inflammation in the body, your body is not going to make your progesterone, it's going to make more cortisol. Sometimes around perimenopause, menopause, naturally your body hormones start waning, so your progesterone starts waning as well. If you have low thyroid, your body is not going to be able to make good progesterone, right? If you have deficiencies in vitamins or minerals like magnesium, vitamin A, B6, zinc is something that's extremely important for hormones. So if you are low in zinc, if you have any of the white spots on your nails, or zinc is necessary for lots of reactions in the body, and if you don't have that, you're not going to make good hormones. A poor diet, a high sugar diet, right? A high sugar diet, having gut dysbiosis. So if your gut flora are not great, right, they can create a lot of gastric issues. They're going to create a lot of inflammation in your gastric tract, and that is going to increase the physiological stress or the biochemical stress on the body, and you are not going to make those hormones. So having high prolactin, which is another hormone, any eating disorders, if you are also malnutrition, right? So if you have eating disorders, there's a lot of psychoneurology, going on with eating disorders. So that itself can also create. And amenorrhea is when you're not menstruating, right, during your menstrual years. So that's different than menopause. Menopause is the cessation when you hit the end of your reproductive cycle. But amenorrhea is what is that you just don't have your cycles, because sometimes there's either blockages with certain receptors or something, or you lack the common raw material needed to make hormones, right? And if you have low progesterone, it can show up as irregular menstruation. It shows up as heavy flow, spotting between periods. So for somebody who has spotting between periods, you could have low progesterone, osteoporosis, irritability, mood swings, right? Any kind of anxiety, insomnia, infertility, miscarriage, PMS. So a lot of women talk about mood swings, or having irritability or having anxiety and insomnia. If this is something that's common during menopause, you're probably lacking the progesterone, and that's why you're having a lot of symptoms, right? So this is something that's important. And Johanna is asking me, what should you make to do it better? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the foods too. I don't know if we might have enough time today, but if not, tomorrow's live stream, I'll be discussing all about managing your hormones. Today, I'm going to focus a little bit on the side effects of, birth control, and give you a little idea of the hormones, right? So the second hormone, or the queen hormone rather, we're going to talk about is estrogen, right? So estrogen is known as the queen of feminism, right? And there are three kinds of estrogens. There's the E1, E2, E3. They're produced again in your ovaries, in your adrenals, and also by your body fat, right? And also by placenta. So a lot of your body curves, the hips, the curviness of your body, the soft skin, the feminine pitch in your voice is all given to you by estrogen, right? And these receptors are all over your body, also on the brain, also in the gut, also in your breasts, lungs, muscles, everywhere, right? So estrogen does a lot of functions in your body, over 300 functions, which includes bone density, which includes protecting your muscle mass. Also, you're protecting your brain and having a positive effect on mood. It helps support serotonin, which is your happy hormone. It keeps your skin young and elastic and supple, right, by maintaining the collagen and maintaining the water content. It also protects your heart by keeping your arteries open and elastic. It also helps with vaginal lubrication. So if you're experiencing vaginal dryness, it could be because of lowered estrogen, right? And your concentration, your focus, your reasoning, a lot of the mental coherence functions are also attributed by estrogen. And it helps with magnesium uptake as well, and it also improves the function of insulin, right? So, as I mentioned, hormones kind of work together. They don't always work on their own just by themselves. They are going to work in groups and they are going to impact a lot of things together, not just one thing. So, there is a common phenomena we talk about as estrogen dominance. So, how many of you have heard the term estrogen dominance? Have you heard about it? Anybody that's watching live, have you heard about estrogen dominance, especially as a woman? Have you heard about your estrogens being extremely high or being dominant in estrogen, or has anybody heard the term? So, if you have, please comment in the comment section so I know you're following up with what I'm saying. So estrogen dominance is when your estrogen could be extremely high, right? Progesterone typically helps balance your estrogen out. But if your progesterone is low, that can create an increase in estrogen. If you are having different foods from outside or different chemicals leaching into your diet, which act as estrogens, right, which are known as xenoestrogens or foreign estrogens, that can also create an increase in estrogen or cause estrogen dominance, right? So, estrogen is typically unobstructed by progesterone. What happens when you are estrogen dominant is it's going to increase your PMS, right? It's going to increase fibrocystic breasts. It's going to also increase the fibroids in uterus and also create any estrogen related cancers, right? And this excess estrogen is also going to decrease your libido. So when you have excess weight around the middle, I know somebody was asking me a question about the weight around the middle. So weight around the middle could be a consequence of excess estrogen if you have estrogen dominance, or if you have excess insulin, right? So excess insulin means that your insulin is spiking. It doesn't mean you have too much insulin. It's that you're having a lot of sugary foods, and to help balance your blood sugar, your insulin or your blood sugar balancing hormone is just released too much, and that insulin is going to grab that sugar and deposit it as fat because you're not using the sugar up. You're not exercising or you're eating lots of sugar, so your body cannot survive with that high amounts of sugar. So the sugar has to be disposed somehow, and it's packed into your fat, or packed as fat in your body and deposited in the midsection. And cortisol could be the third part of it, right? Cortisol could be the third piece, where if you are under chronic stress, the cortisol is going to be high, and that is going to create a lot of midsection weight deposit, right? So tires around the belly, weight increase, water retention, right, are all typical signs and symptoms of any imbalance in your female hormone, especially. So Wendy has a few questions. Horrible night sweats, hot flashes, only 4 hours of sleep. So you are definitely having issues with your hormones, right? We can get the hormones tested and see what level they are at, and then we decide the protocol. So without testing for hormones, just don't take anything over the counter, because that might not work. And sometimes when you have a lot of hot flashes, it has more to do with your liver, because your liver also has to detoxify all these hormones, right, after they are done with their function. So if your liver is not detoxifying your hormones properly, it ends up being like backed up and overloaded. And the heat from the liver, or the heat necessary, in Ayurveda we call it a pitta sthana, right? So it's going to disperse all the heat throughout the body and start creating hot flashes, right? So that's something to understand. when it comes to your hormones. So again, muffin top is a sign: irritability, breast tenderness, excess PMS symptoms, night sweats, hot flashes, they can all be caused by high estrogen as well. And they could also be caused sometimes by low estrogen. And fibroids are common with high estrogen, right? Fibroids or cysts or breast cancer is also one of the could be caused by high estrogen. Breast tenderness is something that could be caused by high estrogen. And if you have low estrogen, it could be because of taking pills. If you're taking a pill, which is just progesterone, it's not going to increase the estrogen, right? It comparatively becomes lower. If you've had hysterectomy where they've taken the ovaries out, then you will be put into what's known as surgical menopause, where via the surgery, your hormones have suddenly stopped functioning, so you could have low estrogen. Usually cancer therapies, create low estrogen because you don't want estrogen. That's the thing that's causing the cancer, right? And any kind of eating disorders or anorexia could have lowered estrogen. And again, some signs when we talk about lowered estrogen is, panic attacks, depressed mood, lack of libido, bone loss, vaginal dryness, belly fat, memory issues, mood swings. So these are all the common factors. And then the third thing we talk about today, in addition to the two main female hormones, is testosterone, right? So while testosterone is a man's best friend, women also have it in smaller quantities, right? And it is also essential for women. So it's made in your adrenal glands or stress glands and also ovaries, and it is converted to estrogen usually, right? And it's also important for hormonal balance. And in the liver, there is a binding product called sex hormone binding globulin that's going to bind up excess free hormone, right? So in women, you also need testosterone because you need that vigor, you need a good mood, you need good memory, you need strong bones and strong muscles, you need your brain function, to be really well. You need a sense of well-being, you get a lot of confidence and libido. They're all functions of having good amounts of testosterone. Like, you have lower amounts of testosterone than men, but they are also essential. And if it is out of balance, if there's something else, any other pathology going on in the body, right? Or if you have high insulin, it can increase your testosterone in the body, right? So, excess testosterone can show up as facial hair, right? You might have oily skin, you might have a lot of acne, irritability, there could be weight gain, there could be, male pattern baldness, there could be PCOS. PCOS is very common, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It self presents with excess testosterone, and that's why you can see facial hair. You can sometimes see hair around the nipples or the chest area in women, right? And that's in PCOS. And this testosterone, can also create excess estrogen, and it can also lead to weight gain, right? And sometimes even over exercising can create. Exercise also helps support testosterone. So if you have low levels, it's always good to start exercising and increase it. But if you're doing like heavy duty lifting and stuff, it's going to increase your overall testosterone in the body, right? And if you have a poor diet, if you have a diet that's high in carbs, that's really low in sugar, right? Sorry, high in carbs and high in sugar and really low in fat, that's going to create excess of testosterone as well, right? So if you have minimal testosterone, that could be because of low fat diets, or if you're on the cholesterol pill. And that is the number one reason why when women, right? So when women talk about being on the cholesterol medication, they end up losing a lot of libido, right? So that is, or they have lack of desire, and that's the one thing that they experience. So it is also important to understand that testosterone is much needed, right? Um, so, okay, just gonna continue for a little bit and then I will take some questions. So low fat diets or cholesterol lowering drugs, being on the cholesterol pill, statins can interfere with testosterone production. Statins actually disrupt your body's feedback mechanism, and um, that's how they can kind of work. And lower testosterone can result in depression. It can also be caused by environmental toxins or lack of exercise. You could have lowered self-esteem, as I mentioned before, low libido, moodiness, sagging skin, menstrual irregularities that can all be created with lower testosterone, right? So just give me a minute and I'm gonna quickly look at my notes and I'll take one or two questions. So, okay, I think I'm right here. Okay, so Beth is talking about DHEA, right? So DHEA or dehydroepiandrosterone is a natural hormone that's produced in your body, right, in the adrenal glands. So this DHEA can actually help produce other hormones, including testosterone and estrogen, right? And naturally, like the levels are going to peak in the adulthood and they start declining as you age, and that's one of the reasons why synthetic versions of DHEA creams are given, right? So as anti-aging therapy or as hormonal balance, um, DHEA supplements, DHEA is given, and especially for certain women who are in menopausal age, if you're having vaginal atrophy, if you're having osteoporosis, right? If you're having depression, if you're having like early aging or issues with your cognitive function, that's when people would not people practitioners would recommend or would suggest or would give you some DHEA creams or something like that. But always work with your practitioner, right? And if you have issues with heart condition or if you have issues with high cholesterol, right? Try not to use DHEA supplements, right? And sometimes DHEA can also worsen any kind of psychiatric conditions or mood disorders, right? So always try to, when you're working with supplements, when you're working with whether it's natural supplements, whether it's artificial supplements, right? So try to work with a practitioner because you are going to invest money working with someone, but it's going to save you a lot of grief, right? And rather than keep driving the car endlessly, somewhere, if you get a map by working with someone, it's going to hasten your journey and make it much easier on you. So that's the one thing I can talk about DHEA. So yes. So Beth is asking another question, which is really good. So Beth is asking me whether cholesterol lowering drugs affect man's libido and self-esteem. Yes, they do. Over long term, it has been researched. It has been showed that they can impact a man's libido. And a lot of the times, whether it's a man or a woman, if your sexual function, if there's any kind of sexual dysfunction, it is going to take a toll on your self-esteem, right? And it is more so ever in men than women because men identify themselves with the virility part, right? So it is going to impact for sure. So collagen production, how can one boost collagen production? The one thing is through your diet, right? And also having antioxidants in your diet. So diet is extremely important when we talk about collagen. And there are lots of collagen supplements that are available that you can take if you want like a quick fix. But one of my favorite things is even bone broth, right? So bone broth can help. Bone broth can definitely help you with making, collagen. Also, a lot of B vitamins and vitamin C can support collagen production, right? So that's one of like that's the answer. I will be talking in details about collagen maybe sometime, not right now. I don't want to digress from the topic because I have lots to cover today, right? So we are also going to talk about endocrine disruptors now that we're here. So when we talk about endocrine disruptors and xenoestrogens, so xenoestrogens are certain um, foreign estrogens. So xeno is something that's foreign, right? and that is an estrogen like thing that acts like your female hormones. And these are common in your personal care products. They're found in cleaning products. They're found in like grocery store receipts. So the ink, right? The ink on aeroplane tickets, the BPA lining of the containers, cans, plastic bottles. So if you have plastic bottles, and I've mentioned this before in my life, that if you heat food in a microwave in plastic, you're killing yourself slowly, right? So ideally, throw away your microwave and throw away the plastic and try to use glass jars. So if you are heating food in a microwave in plastic containers, you're slowly poisoning yourself, right? If you're having a lot of artificial foods, if you're having a lot of drinks, that have flame retardants, or if you're putting a lot of product on your skin which has um, a lot of synthetic chemicals in it, you are slowly poisoning yourself, right? So, as shocking as it may seem, it is a fact, right? So, you have to be extremely careful. And that is why when you're working with receipts or something, never like touch it like your saliva to kind of open up the receipts or something, like never do that, because it's going to create a lot of issues. And the three common endocrine disruptors that I'm going to talk about, the first one is BPA, right, or bisphenol A. So BPA is a chemical that is actually associated with cancer, right, including breast cancer. And chemicals like these, BPA, right? BPA is found in your receipts, it's found in plastic bottles and containers, it's found in canned foods and packaging. And you can find some good quality, cleaner ones, cans, which say that they don't have any BPA in the lining. So if you still want to buy your canned foods, at least buy the good quality ones, right, in the organic section, which talk about having no BPA in their lining, right? Because you don't want to be ingesting this. And try to avoid drinking out of the plastic. Do not microwave in plastic, right? And an option would be, instead of buying canned tomatoes, right? Because tomatoes are something that's sour and a little bit acidic. So having BPA in the lining of the tomato can, the BPA can actually leach into the tomatoes, right? So if you want a quick fix, just buy the bottled tomatoes in a glass bottle. That's something very simple. That's something very doable. And it's also good for your hormonal health, right? The second one I'm going to talk about is flame retardants, right? So even when we talk about the bed that you're sleeping on every night, it could also have flame retardants on it, right? So flame retardants are in your couch, in your cushions, mattresses. They find their way into pets' bed, sometimes, baby car seats, electronics, everywhere. Certain drinks have been famous for having flame retardant like chemicals. And try to avoid those. Make sure you're opening your windows, make sure you have check label on your clothes and furniture, right, before you're making a new purchase. So that's something very important to do. And make sure there is some kind of air filter, or there are plants that filter air for you, right? So you can always have a lot of plants in the home. You can keep the windows open. So that's the one thing you can do. So, okay, Mugdha has a question for me. Is it okay to store dried beans in plastic? Because I do it by recycling. Yeah, so dried beans, you can definitely store it in plastic, right? But don't store, like, don't heat it up. Like, when you're soaking it, I typically soak, like, I use plastic containers occasionally for storage. I have some from the past. I'm not 100% glass, but a lot of what I use actively when cooking or soaking, like even for soaking beans, I'll take it either in a stainless steel container or a glass container, because I also add some apple cider vinegar in it, which makes it more digestible, right? So if you are soaking with any acid, do not use plastic. But storage is fine as long as there's no water, or as long as there's, yeah, storage is definitely fine. You can do that. So the third thing we're going to talk about is phthalates, right? We're talking about endocrine disruptors. We spoke about bisphenol A or BPA. We talked about flame retardants. Now we're going to talk about phthalates. And when we talk about fragrances, so fragrances can also have phthalates in it. A lot of personal care items, plastic wraps, food containers, plastic children's toys, fragrances, in trash bags. So if you buy those scented trash bags, if you buy scented diapers, scented candles, they could also have phthalates, and so do air fresheners, right? So try to avoid anything that has phthalates. So phthalates are PHTHALATES. That's how they're spelled. And try to avoid those and try to use more glass, right? And something as simple as if you're buying any pasta sauce, or if you're buying any soup out of the glass, like you can just start saving those glass jars, and that's where I store most of my beans. A lot of the mason jars are extremely good when it comes to storing beans or storing foods. When we're talking about phthalates, try to buy bee wax candles. If you love candles, bee wax ones are really great. You can also buy beeswax wraps instead of the plastic wraps. I do have some wraps, plastic wraps for wrapping food and all, made with bee wax, rather than having those plastic ones. And make sure your laundry detergent doesn't have a lot of fragrance in it, or try to avoid like air fresheners. Use essential oils. If you want something to freshen up your kitchen, like literally boil some lemons, add some cinnamon sticks in a pan, and that will just make your entire kitchen fragrant, right? So these are some simple natural remedies, right? And one of the ways to avoid these is estrogens, right? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to avoid and what to use to detoxify. So one of the things is to try and eat as organic as possible, right? Because pesticides could also act as these xenoestrogens. So try to avoid pesticides, try to eat as organic as possible, try to grow your own food. It is a fantastic season right now. I'm really big on growing my own food. I don't grow tons, but I grow some things which I absolutely love. They make me happy. They also feed me and nourish me, and they taste the best. So growing foods in your containers could be one option. Making sure there's no pesticide would really, support. um, avoiding plastic, avoiding touching paper receipts, washing your hands, right? Everybody's extremely cautious about washing hands right now. I hope we don't fall into all the bad habits after this is done. So anytime you touch a receipt, from the grocery store or a plane ticket, try to wash your hands, right? So you're not going to end up ingesting it. So these are a few things you can do. And what are some foods that can really help? So my favorite foods that really help detoxify hormones, right? First one is anything from the broccoli cabbage family. So broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, right? So all cruciferous vegetables, they do have something called DIM or diindolylmethane, and that really helps detoxify excess hormones from your body. So something as simple as having broccoli or cauliflower or cabbage or Brussels sprouts or kale at least once to twice a day, right? I have it on a daily basis. So at least a cup every day, if you have it, you are going to be able to detoxify your body really well. And that can help you balance your hormones. So this is something simple. This is not something super expensive, but that definitely will help you balance it out. The other factor is not getting constipated, right? So when we talk about constipation, when we talk about diet, so when you are constipated, what ends up happening is anything that your body is trying to get rid of sits in the body, and the bad bacteria in your body can end up breaking down those things and reabsorbing, right? So that could be your hormones, those could be other substances. So ideally also increasing fiber in your diet. When you have more fiber in your diet, leafy green vegetables are extremely great. Whole grains, whole fruit. Ditch the fruit juice, have whole fruits instead, right? So even grapes have something called resveratrol, which is a really resveratrol, which is a really good antioxidant, right? So that's also going to help you. Having magnesium, leafy greens have fantastic amounts of magnesium, which also helps detoxify. So, Johanna, I'm kind of answering your question that having those cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cruciferous vegetables, having lots of fiber and magnesium from leafy greens can help detoxify excess hormones from your body that you do not need, right? Again, this also depends on the function of your liver. So when I see clients, I work one on one with a lot of women going through menopause or going through other issues. I also go through women who have taken birth control for a lot of years, which totally messes up their body. So at that time, we try to focus on liver and focus on healing the liver, focus on rebalancing the liver, and focus on making sure that your body works extremely well, right? So those are a few things. So today it's almost 9:09. I wanted to take some time. So, okay, Usha ji is asking me whether to have cooked or raw. That's a really good question. So, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, raw is harder to digest in Ayurveda. It makes it more gassy. Cooked is better, right? And if you have thyroid issues, if your thyroid is not functioning well, which is also common with hormonal imbalances, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So if you have excess hormones in the system, sometimes they stop your thyroid from functioning well. They create a scene in your body where there's a lot of inflammation, or they bind your free thyroid, right? So in your body, even though there could be hormones, if there are no free hormones, they're not going to work. So if you have issues related to thyroid, like hypothyroidism, especially, right? If your thyroid function is low, it's not functioning well, always have cooked cruciferous vegetables, right? So broccoli, kale, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, always have cooked all the time if you have any thyroid condition, right? And if you don't have a thyroid condition, you can use those raw, most definitely, but in smaller quantities, right? So that's something to know. And again, going back to thyroid, even soy can work as a goitrogen, or that can stop your thyroid function. So avoiding soy or having fermented soy will deactivate the goitrogens as well. So you can do that too, right? So I hope that answers your question. And yeah, suits you. No, that's perfect. I don't like a lot of dry foods as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about birth control, because a lot of my clients either are on birth control or have been on birth control. And if you know somebody that is on birth control, I'm just going to talk about some things your doctors won't tell you about it, right? So some things that nobody's going to talk about, that what are the effects of birth control on your body. And I've also seen that certain times women are on birth control for over 10 years, 15 years, and they start having a lot of fertility struggles, right? So that's also what I've seen in my practice. So sometimes you just expect that, okay, I'm taking birth control for 10 years now, and I stop the birth control and I try to conceive and it's going to happen immediately. No, your body is changed a little bit, right, during the birth control. And that is because you're messing up with the connection of your body. So your brain and your ovaries are not communicating well, because you're creating an unnatural situation in your body via birth control. And that can have a lot of side effects, that can have a lot of issues with you. So there are birth controls of two types, mainly like oral contraceptives pills, right? So one of them has a combination of estrogen and progesterone, and the other one is just progestin, or a kind of progesterone, right? So there are two kinds of birth control pills or oral contraceptives. And what these OCPs can do is they can mess up your microbiome. They can alter your gut flora, right? They can alter your gut bacteria. They can change the milk production, right? And this is especially important to remember, that if you're planning to conceive and have a baby, your baby's first flora comes from your vaginal tract. So if you have taken birth control pills for a long time, your baby is not going to have a healthy gut flora either, right? So that's something to take into consideration. And birth control sometimes is given for women to fix the periods, or if they're having heavy periods, or if they're not bleeding, or they're having acne. But it is not the right protocol, right? So in Ayurveda, we talk about Shuddha Chikitsa or pure treatments. So anytime I give you a herb or any Ayurvedic supplement or any supplement, if I'm practicing according to Ayurvedic tradition, I cannot create another condition in you. The drug that I'm giving you, the herb that I'm giving you, should not have side effects or undesired effects, because that's what Ayurveda means, right? If you take something over the counter by yourself without understanding something that's sold in the name of Ayurveda, definitely you can get a side effect with it. But when you work with a practitioner, we have to consider everything and make sure you're not getting side effects, right? That's what's known as the pure treatment. So taking birth control for acne or any other conditions, is not a healthy option. Birth control is also going to alter your thyroid. It's going to bind the free thyroid hormone. It's also going to alter your testosterone. It's going to bind the free testosterone hormone, right? So it could cause issues with low thyroid. It could lead to weight gain. It could also cause low mood. It could also make you lose a lot of muscle mass, right? So these are some side effects of birth control. And also that when you take a lot of estrogen related pills, right? Excess estrogen has also been linked to high risk of strokes and blood clots. So that's important to understand. It's important to understand that it can increase your inflammation in the body, right? So there is a marker known as C-reactive protein that we look for, which is a marker of inflammation. So pills can increase the oxidative stress on your body. It can increase your inflammation, and it can also be seen as the increase in CRP or C reactive protein. And if you already have an autoimmune condition which is inflammatory in nature, or if you have any other inflammatory condition like inflammatory bowel disease or something, you're increasing the inflammation on your body by taking oral contraceptives, right? It can also create issues with your stress glands, right? This inflammation is going to also attack your stress glands, and it will also deplete your nutrients. It will deplete your zinc, it will deplete your B vitamins, it will deplete all your antioxidants like selenium, right? So this is extremely important to understand that there are a lot more options to the birth control or oral contraceptives, and that's something you should consider if you are looking for contraception, right? So today, that's what I wanted to cover, a little bit about estrogen, a little bit about progesterone, a few things on testosterone, and um, birth control pills. So that's what I wanted to discuss today. So tomorrow I'll be talking a little bit more again about hormones, right? So we can talk about the impact of hormones, or we can talk in details about how to detoxify your body of the hormones, right? So, or female hormones, how to balance those. Tomorrow, I can discuss signs and symptoms that your hormones are completely out of whack. So, how do you know that your hormones are out of control or out of balance? And we can look at that from different perspective tomorrow, right? So, we can talk about those. We can talk about certain herbs that can balance your hormones as well, and just simple remedies to balance your hormones. So that's all we're going to discuss tomorrow, right? So if you have any questions, always, post it in the comment section. If you know a friend that needs to know this information, if it's, or a family member, if it's your sister or your mom or your daughter or your friend, somebody that needs to know this information, please feel free to share this video with them or tag them in this video so they can watch it too. And any point of time, if you have any questions, put them in the comment section. Thank you all for watching this live. Thanks for joining me in my every evening lives. So thanks so much. And thank you, Uttam ji. I know you've been talking about the book, and I've been wanting to write a book. That was my whole agenda for the quarantine period. But I haven't even started writing, but it will come soon. Like I know I need to write a book. A lot of my friends have been pushing me for it. So thanks for the encouragement. Thank you, Ushaji. Thanks everyone. Thanks Chitra Kaku. Thank you all for watching this live. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time, 8:30. Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for watching live. So I'll be back tomorrow around the same time. Tomorrow we're going to discuss a lot more in detail about your hormones. What are some signs that your hormones are out of balance? And mainly how to bring those hormones back into balance, right? So tomorrow we're going to talk about something known as phytoestrogens. So these are plant-based estrogens that you can actually start including in your diet to support your body. We'll talk a little bit more about cruciferous vegetables, what are the best ways to eat them, and what are some ingredients to have them. We will talk a little bit about liver detoxification as well, just understanding a few basic concepts. And hopefully that helps you get more healthier, right? So thanks everyone for watching again. 100 days in a book. Um, I would need somebody to transcribe it, but that's a good idea. So I don't have to do the extra work. I can just ask somebody to, write down all my video notes. And that's a great idea. Yeah. I've been wanting to write one on nutrition. I'm actually planning to host a course on Ayurvedic nutrition soon, right? So that will talk about both sides, the Ayurvedic perspective, the modern perspective, and make sure you have the best of both the worlds. So that's kind of my goal for now. But the book idea is really amazing. And 100 days in a book would be a nice idea. Yeah, maybe I should just start transcribing all my videos and put it into a book. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for the idea. So thank you all again for watching this live. Have a fantastic night. I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we will all focus on balancing our hormones, right? And any questions, you're always welcome to post it here.